It's a great privilege for me to introduce our very first speaker, an internationally recognised leading expert in the future development of cities. She's the CEO of Think Tank Organisation Committee for Perth, and she's led a number of such highly respected and regarded research projects to indeed make sure that women are represented fully in all places and in all cities. And her research is just so fascinating. Ladies and gentlemen, would you please welcome the wonderful Marion Fulker.
Thank you, Tina, and thank you, Gail, and what an honour it is to be here with you for UN Women to celebrate International Women's Day. Thank you, Gail, for the welcome to country, and I acknowledge that we are meeting on the traditional lands of the Whadjuk Noongar people and may pay my respects to elders past and present and to any Aboriginal people in the room, and particularly the Aboriginal women with such a matriarchal society. My role this morning is to reflect on Filling the Pool, a gender inequality study that I led for the Committee for Perth between 2013 and 15. A number of you in this room were part of that. Women interviewed who were graduates, managers, C-suite executives, directors and board chairs, along with a group of women who had found the juggling act almost impossible and had run screaming from St George's Terrace. There's also representatives from the male power base who were also interviewed. And I'll say that there was an absolute divide between the two groups. We wrote to these men, their EAs rang, locked in an appointment, no problem. I had to beg, plead, guarantee anonymity to the 150 women who were interviewed, and still publicly there are only 10 women who will put up their hands to say they were interviewed. That says something about this town. So 173 people shared their stories and perspectives on why Perth's women were not getting ahead. Every story resulted in a finding, and every one of these was backed by evidence. Filling the Pool and its roadmap of recommendations has gone far and wide since. It's been part of my own journey, something I'm incredibly proud of. So you will hear later today from UN Women that they've done an exercise and it's going to take 99 years to get to gender equality. Well, our researchers had some fun and they said, how long is it going to take to get to gender parity in the CEO positions in this country? 300 years was their advice. I think all of us would agree that it's totally ridiculous. And why is parity at CEO level important? It's important because that becomes the pool of board directors and board chairs. So in corporate Australia, the upper echelons of power will never be really occupied by women unless we can get women into C-suite positions and up to the ultimate role of CEO. What we found in Filling the Pool, and we used 2 researchers from the University of Queensland to conduct the study and do the interviews, and that was deliberate. We wanted people who had no knowledge really of how Perth worked and wouldn't know each of you. As you know, 2 degrees of separation in this town. So the anonymity went even further to have researchers who really could not understand this place and had I suppose, a very slim view of it to begin with. They found something that was very critical, that for women with caring responsibilities to also have a career, 4 things need to be working in concert, referred to as the 4 pillars. You need the support of your spouse, your partner in life who is going to back you as you would back them. And of course, we have the highest FIFO workforce in the country here, with someone leaving the family unit on a rostered and continued basis where you keep breaking that support cycle. You also need family support, and Western Australia is an economy where we import talent and people arrive without that extended family unit that's often so important. External childcare providers, we had the lowest per capita rate in the country. And I won't even begin to talk about before school care, after school care and holiday care, which is often incredibly patchy. And back then, in 2015, when we were launching the report, flexible work was seen as being a critical component. And there's been a lot of negativity about COVID, but one of, I think, the very positive things is we've shown so many more people how to work flexibly, and I hope it's moved from being a chicks policy, a working mother's policy, to actually being a policy for all. So back in 2015, we uncovered structural and cultural barriers to women's participation and progression in the workforce. But why in 2021 does it remain a balancing act? Well, there's cultural expectations that remain. There is too much emphasis in this country on mothering, not parenting. And inadequate facilities remain. Access to quality, affordable, reliable childcare for children of all ages and stages is incredibly problematic. So here's the roadmap of recommendations. I call it the spaghetti bowl. 31 things that actually need to be working together to make sure that women progress and participate fully, or in at least the way that they would want to. So on the left, there's recommendations for government. In the centre, recommendations for organisation, and in brackets, men. And then on the right, recommendations for women. Now, I don't have long enough to go through each of them, but I thought I would call out some critical ones. We asked government to develop a program to increase the number of girls undertaking STEM-related subjects. And I think the private sector, through peak and industry and professional bodies, has done a marvellous job at getting out into schools and talking to young women and bringing role models, women who are working in male-dominated professions, who have this career and study background. And of course, since then, STEAM has become the word rather than STEM, adding in arts and that sort of cultural dimension, which I fully agree with. One of the recommendations was to bring men into the conversation, and congratulations to every man who's turned up today and done something for women in their career, and you need to keep doing it because often we're not in the room when the opportunities are spoken about. For women, there was a recommendation about building self-confidence. And the advice was, from 100 successful women who were talking to their younger selves and said they wished they'd known, become the subject matter expert, become the go-to person, because it becomes a self-reinforcing feedback loop. And so many women have reported that's been an absolute essential tool to building their self-confidence. We know that men and women are inherently born with no difference in self-confidence, but women's confidence does drop away in the teenage years and doesn't come back till much later in life. The only saving grace is men's confidence drops off a cliff when they retire. So it takes a long time for our levels of self-confidence to readjust. In the middle, there's recommendations both for women and for organisation about having formal mentoring programs, for acquiring mentors and sponsors, but there's also the obligation for women to take on another woman. So I hope each of you are doing that. One of the most controversial parts was quotas versus targets. And in the report, we recommended that change must be driven from the top and that targets were teeth were the way to go, that cascaded down from the organisation. So the board set the target, the CEO was accountable and would drive that accountability down through the organisation. And that was important because we need a pull-through. We need the pull-through from the graduates and every level above that to actually then make the change in the C-suites. And of course, all of these things, as I said, need to be working together. So I thought I'd also reflect on what's not working. So again, the sort of left, right and centre positions. We asked government, and this is really a federal government issue, to raise awareness of cultural norms holding women back from contributing to the economy, and that still needs to be done. One of the things I've personally struggled with in my own career, and many women have told me they do too, is to understand effective self-promotion and networking. Now, I think we've got much better at networking in the last couple of years, but this self-promotion, it feels uncomfortable, I suppose is the word. And many women reported in the study, why doesn't hard work speak for itself? And I can tell you the researchers found that it didn't. So we have to find a way of talking about the things that we do in a way that feels comfortable and authentic. However, the crux of the matter, which is recommendation 5, sitting at the top in the middle, is embrace the economic argument. There are learned academics and high-quality consulting brands that you and I would take advice from on any other matter, but we are not getting the cut through on the economic argument, and that is something that needs to change. There's 2 issues since 2015 that have emerged. When companies did a pay gap audit, which we asked them to do, they found like-for-like roles had a pay gap of which women were disadvantaged. Often it was in the discretionary element, or even if it was in the pay band, the males tended to be at the top of the pay band and the women at the bottom. One company reported a 40% discretionary element. They could not explain why the males were getting above the women. And to their credit, they fixed it. Many other firms know they've got a problem and are working to fix it. And I think that, a couple have said that it's going to take 3 or 4 years because the problem is so large. The other thing is elder care. We had women in our study who really talked about issues around childcare. But if you took a step back to raise your children and you are a woman, be warned that if your parents or your in-laws have an issue, you are likely to be the one that will step back again, and that will cost you in your career as well. So, still work to do. Filling the Pool was a landmark report. It covered the structural and cultural reasons why women were not fully participating or progressing in the workforce. It was a project by Perth for Perth that resulted in 31 recommendations to attract change and has resonated across the nation and beyond. Just as the 4 pillars need to be working in concert, so too do the recommendations. Every organisation recognises it can do better. Many are publicly holding themselves to account. Society, however, you and me, are struggling to give women equal opportunity. And it seems to me this comes from a deep and ingrained fundamental lack of respect, not seeing or treating women as equals. I stand on the shoulders of the generations before me, women who had to fight for the right to vote, to keep a job after they married, and from being systemically excluded. I fought the good fight, but I'm tired. I'm emotionally wrung out from having to keep pushing. In years gone by, I've sat in the seats that you're sitting in now, and I've listened to inspiring people really fighting injustice and inequity. So here's your homework. If you haven't read Filling the Pool, please do, and if you haven't read it for a while, reread it again and take decisive action. Thank you.